Welcome, Sat Shri Akal, to the Love, Laugh, Live chat show with the gorgeous Dav Ubi and myself, Gurdial Garcha.
So, Pyar Karo Hasso, the Jug Jug Jiyo wala show. So, this show is all about, how to love with passion, how to love with pleasure, and how to live with peace.
How to laugh with pleasure. So, Pyar Karo Sare Dil de naal. हंसो दिल भर के ताजियो शांत दे नाल.
So my name is Devinder Ruby. I'm a life and spiritual coach, and sitting next to me, my beautiful co-host.
And my name is Gurdial Garcha, and I'm an empowerment and resilience coach. So Dav, what are we going to talk about today?
My favorite topic, Pyar, Ishq, Mohabbat. And like we said, we've done this last 2 episodes. And we say Pyar is such a vast topic. We can talk about this forever. So we're just going to give, as coaches, our understanding of what love means to us and how love has helped us to grow and evolve and learn from all our challenges. So today's topic, I think we're going to talk about, can you really love everyone? Can you really?
This is a really, really difficult one because I think it just depends on the person. Let's just say, for example, I think it would be very difficult to love everyone. I think as parents, most of the time you can love your children unconditionally. So if there's any kind of unconditional love, but I think with everybody else, there are conditions that, your friends, there's an expectation, your family, extended family, there's an expectation. So I think it's all conditional. So I think you can love everyone, but there's different levels and depths of
different
love.
Forms of love,
yeah.
So
that's how I would see it.
You love your children differently, like you love your partner or your mother.
Yeah.
They're all love, but we just have a different experience of love.
Yeah.
And there's no mistake. But the question is, can you really love everyone? If God, Paramatma, is omnipresent, it loves everyone. There's no judgment. Unconditionally. It doesn't matter, if you're a bad person or a criminal or you're a saint, it still unconditionally loves everyone. But if we are extensions of God, right? Mm-hmm. And we hate God, we are human species, having this wonderful experience on this planet in this life form. And so if God can love everyone, we're extensions of God, then aren't we meant to love everyone?
I think, yeah, definitely. But I think our egos, our personalities, our nature, everything that's affected us from when we were small, we've learnt that, it's safe to love that person, it's not safe to love that person. So there's so much going on in terms of the conditions of love. Like if somebody comes up to you that hasn't showered in a month, it's very difficult to love that person. Or maybe somebody who's in prison for doing a horrendous crime, it's very difficult to love that person because it's the roles that they play. That's what makes it hard, because we're put in such a deep meaning. If I was to say, for instance, the biggest one I find is when I'm talking to people, how can you love a paedophile? How can you love someone who's, sexually abusive? How can you love someone who's killed somebody? God can do it because that's God, but how can we do it as human beings?
Look what you just done. You think God is something else bigger and higher than you.
Yeah, but that's what happens, isn't it? That's how we, as human beings, and I'm just talking from a human being's perspective, that's what we think. God's out there somewhere, he's not within me, because that's how I can separate myself. And I can judge, but then I can judge. I can judge all these people who've made so many mistakes, but then I can think, well, I'm better than them because I haven't done those things. So therefore I feel justified in what I'm thinking and feeling about those people who have committed those crimes.
But the moment we've gone into separation, that's when we disconnect from this love that we talk about, and let's say, apne bache hon, right? So we are like Rab to them, and so ek bacha kafi ilta karda and makes a lot of mistakes, and dusra bacha is like, it's always a sensible, bacha does nothing wrong, is always hanji mummy, hanji daddy, right? So, but as a mother, as a parent, you still love them equally.
again, that's debatable because it depends on how naughty they are as they grow up.
I don't know. I still feel like I'm not perfect all the time. I make mistakes, but I still want to be loved by my mum, my dad.
Yeah.
So galtiyan is a normal part of our spiritual growth and experience. We're meant to have that. Galtiyan is inevitable. You know, that's what we're here to do as well, learn from. But it doesn't mean they're going to love me less. So, but that's what Paramatma, God, is, that no matter how awful we are, how bad we are, it's unconditional. It doesn't have conditions, you know, that Rab says, if you, as you've gone onto this world and you got this role to play, and if you make a mistake, I'm not going to love you, you're going to be judged. I don't think there's such a God that judges, because the moment you go on to judge, then we think we've got to fear this God. The moment we think we have to fear this God, we've gone away from this God state, this unconditional love. But God is not meant to be feared. You know, we are this God, omnipresent. And then we start fearing ourselves, and we're living in a world where it's a dangerous place. We can't trust anyone. We can't experience that love to its essence. You know, and I'm going to go back to, can you love everyone? I believe you can.
I think if I'm not thinking generally, I think I can love everyone, because then I'm going to be coming from a place of compassion, and I'm going to be thinking, well, if that was my child that had made that mistake, I know I would love them.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of it in a different way, whereas as the general public, I think everything it's easily black and white.
Yeah.
You know, those people are the people that don't deserve to be loved, and those people, I love them because they are ticking all the boxes of what we perceive as love.
Yeah.
But what we have to try and understand as human beings, and as doing this program, is how can you love everyone? And that is to go beyond what they've done or what they're doing, because behind there, regardless of what they've done and how they come across, there is still God within them, because God resides in all.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, again, we mention this nearly every episode we do that it all starts within. So what relationship you have with yourself, that is the relationship you can have with the people outside in the external world. So that little line I'm going to say, you know, जिसके दिल में इश्क मोहब्बत है, जिसके दिल में इश्क मोहब्बत है, उसको पसंद करता है मौला. For me, that's so अपने दिल जो दिल, you know, इश्क मोहब्बत है ना, and we've really accepted it, and that's how we identify ourselves in this form, you know. So that's what we'll end up experiencing with others, that we'll start that experience their dil mohabbat in their hearts. So that's where you can love everyone. And then you start saying, jede mere andar je jyot hai na, uske ohi same jyot hai. Doesn't matter what they look like, what religion, background, meet, gareeb, whatever it is, uske ohi jyot hai, mere andar je jyot hai gaya. So this is when the only way you can love everyone, this is how I believe it, when I start loving myself, my imperfections, when I don't judge myself, and I actually, you know, implement all those virtues of God, of feeling abundant, feeling grateful, feeling that place of compassion, unconditional love for myself, then I'm in that place of unconditional love, then I'm capable of loving everyone else.
Yeah, and I totally agree, you know, but I think it's always a journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because going, you know, because we're so conditioned, and culturally, religiously, all these things affect how we feel about ourselves as individuals. It is going to affect whether we love everyone, you know. I think at our actual core, of course, we want to experience love for everyone.
Yeah.
But then things get in the way, you know. It could be the ego, it could be your mood, it could be your emotion, it could be everything.
Yeah.
But again, I think as we grow older and older, we realize that, well, this person is this way because of their experiences of life, the trauma that they've experienced. So therefore, they don't feel great about everybody else, and they can't be happy for you, they can't be happy for me, because they're coming from a place of not being happy because of their experience, and because there's an element of them being stuck.
Yeah.
You know, I know we mentioned this in our last program, but they're not maybe not willing, or maybe not, just haven't accepted their own situation for where they are, so they can't experience the love because they haven't gone past that experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's beautiful the way you explain that as well. And but like you said, we're all, wherever we are on our journeys,
and I think that's a difficult one for people to accept.
It is say, and jidda vi hege jidda Hitler siga, Mother Teresa, that was part of their experience, and that's where God knew that was unconditional love. He still felt for all of them because they all had a reason for being here, you know. And maybe through Hitler, all the people that inflicted so much suffering, they're maybe learning the virtue of forgiveness, self-compassion. It's something bigger going on, and it probably goes way beyond how minds can comprehend what's really going on a human level. But I think we're here to really, obviously we come and we get amnesia, we forget who we are, and we're here to, through our human interactions and challenges, to remember that who we are at our core essence. And sometimes the remembering comes through a situation where we deal with the contrast of, you know, the pain and love and happiness and joy, you know, torture, whatever it is. But we need the contrast really to really appreciate all the different spectrums of love and emotions, everything that's available to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of an example. Say, for instance, you're within a family, and your family, you know, might be doing really, really well, and then all of a sudden, the family that you once were on a level with, they just don't want to know you anymore, and they don't want to interact with you. They don't want to, you know, spend time with you or celebrate your wins or your, you know, whatever you've completed, your achievements. And then all of a sudden there's a difference. So how do you overcome that? How do you love the people that are now all of a sudden, only because you're doing well in whatever area of your life, they don't want to know you anymore. So that's where, you know, they've come from a place of, well, there's jealousy, there's envy, there's anger, whatever you want to call it. And that's where it's difficult to say, well, I still want to love them because I have that love for them. And it could be your own immediate family that you're experiencing this from.
Well, usually are the immediate families.
It's usually, you know, the enemies aren't out there in the bigger public. It's usually your own immediate family that for some reason, and we're all guilty of it ourselves. We're not saying they, we're talking about we. We all do this, where we can't cope with someone doing really well, and there's an element of where we feel that, well, we should have done that well, or why didn't our children do that well? So there's that comparison that comes in. So that again is where you've said, that's where we've detached from who we essentially are, which is love. And you know, because people who love who they are don't go into that comparison, don't think, well, they're doing better than we are, because we're all just having an experience, and it's how we handle it. Because when we're not happy for other people, there's something that we're not happy with ourselves, where we feel low self-worth, low self-esteem, not feeling good enough. Those kind of emotions are coming up when we go into that comparison.
Yeah, so like I said earlier on, that, you know, once we fully love ourselves, that's what we experience out there. But then we need the contrast. It's just, this is what life is about, it's duality. So yes, we can love everyone. If we have to remember that we are this extension of God, why is it easier to love everyone, where we don't have to be in the place of judgment? Yes, but then, you know, the reason we can't love everyone, because we're in this human form, it's like we've enrolled ourselves to have a very difficult relationship, or at work or home or whatever, because we're going to learn and grow from it. And there's going to be moments thinking, they're not even being worthy of being loved, or even I'm not worthy of being loved. So we're going to go through all of that. It's just an experience. Everything is just an experience that obviously we play in these roles and we take them too seriously. But if we're meant to love everyone all the time here, then we won't even come into this life form really. We'll just be in that heavenly state.
Yeah.
You know, and
that's the yin and yang of life, isn't it? It's the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
You know, and we talk about this quite often, where how can you love somebody if you haven't experienced the hurt, you know, the pain of not being loved? How can you understand love? How can you understand hurt or anguish or suffering if you haven't been in a state of being content.
Yeah.
So you have to have one in order to understand the other.
Yeah.
And that's what God is all about.
It is. It's just like you're having an experience. So sometimes you need to go on the wrong path, on the wrong road, because you think, well, I've done it, but I don't want to choose that situation again. So it gives you more clarity. You have more, better vision. You're visualizing what would it be like now for me to experience this in a better way. And sometimes what the contrast do when you're in a place where it's opposite of what you want, you don't realize subconsciously you are sending this signal, this message, this intention to, you know, the universe through, because you had that contrast experience, and somehow it allows you to manifest every time something even better. So if you talk about people in relationships, sometimes a relationship gets better and better every time, you know, they've had a breakdown one relationship, because they realize this is not what I'm going to tolerate in this relationship. And obviously you set an intention of what I can tolerate, and you end up attracting that. But even that new relationship, then you find there's another parts of it that you think, I'm not going to tolerate. And then you're sending an intention, you know, signal to the universe that I actually have this inner desire, this is what I'm ready for. So each time you are growing and expanding, and this could be just through friends, circle of friends, work, that you find yourself, once you've allowed yourself, I'm going to tolerate this, I feel I'm deserving of something better. Once you realize this is what the intention I have now in how I'm going to experience my next relationship or anything, you somehow attract that then. So that's what the contrast does, it is okay, and each time you're getting better and better.
Yeah, and sometimes what we really, really have to understand is it's going from unconscious to fully conscious. So when we first go into any kind of friendship relationship, we're not aware of what the other person's like. We're not even aware of what we're like within that relationship. It's only through spending time together. You know, it's like we've talked about the honeymoon period, you know, where everything's hearts and flowers and everybody, you can't get off the phone to each other, and every single minute of spending time together is so precious. Yeah. I mean, those same two people, if you speak to them 35 years after they've been together, it's a whole different ballgame.
I know.
Because there's the side of, well, I don't like this about them, I don't like this, I don't like. So there's more negatives than there are positives. Yeah. Because to keep that love, which is, you know, can you really love everyone? And this means every part of someone. It's really difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. But again, it's ignoring those things and still thinking, you know what, I love this person for these reasons. Yeah. But, you know, we can love everyone because we don't have to get to know them at such a deeper level. Yeah. So from a superficial level, I think it's really quite easy. Yeah. If we didn't know, so for instance, if there's 1,000 people in this room, we could say, yeah, we love everyone. That's dead easy. Yeah. But once we get to know the backgrounds, what they're like, what they don't like, what they've done, and whatever their existence is on this life, that's when our program kicks in. Yeah. And that's when our judgment kicks in. Well, I don't like that person. And you know what really strikes me is when women or even men get together and somebody joins the group and they say, oh, I don't like that person. Yeah, but they're coming from their own projection. Yeah. They are coming from the same projection, but how easy it is to influence a group of people. Yeah. And then if you say, well, actually, I want to just accept that person, I want to get to know that person myself, you then become unpopular. Yeah. Yeah. Do you see the dynamics of what I'm saying? Yeah. So even within your own friendship circle, to accept somebody new into your circle can be a challenge. And so even wanting to allow someone to do this whole thing of where you can really try and love someone, you've got to be prepared to put your own neck out as well. Yeah, yeah. That's really nice the way you said that. So I also find that, let's say that people have been very challenging for me in the past, and those are the same people. Ma shukrana karti for just the way they were, the ones that gave me a difficult time, because they pushed me into a place where I wouldn't have otherwise would have gone on that path. So this is where I can say you can love everyone, especially love the ones that actually, you know, get your greatest teachers, the ones that gave you the more of the triggers and gave you more of the, you know, the pain and suffering, because they had to behave that way, but pushed me
into a relationship I think I was deserving of at that time, but it pushed me to a better, wonderful, harmonious relationship because the way they treated me. So now I can say right now, I'm actually more grateful for them who caused me the suffering that pushed me to the relationship that I would never otherwise would have experienced. This is where you can say I can love everyone. And I suppose even our gurus, everyone, that's why they always were forgiving. They never held on to any resentment, gussa. Doesn't matter who those tyrants were. They still realized that because of the tyrants, it made people more compassionate, more, they unified everyone to work and help and support each other. So there's no such things. There's a mistake, those what we label as cruel, bad people, they had a purpose in us to reconnect back to the God state that we were all the time.
I think there's also in this element of, can you really love everyone? You might be in a really good place. I might be in a really good place where I feel so connected with myself. I've done some inner work where I've looked at all my imperfections, what I judged myself to be or not be good enough. And then I want to extend that to other people, but they may not be ready to feel the way you're feeling. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the other person just may not be accepting or willing to kind of come together with you and say, well, let's just put this behind us. And that's a different form of loving everyone, but then maybe still not having anything to do with them. And that is a form of love. You can love somebody from a distance. It could be your own immediate family where they're not willing to kind of address whatever issues or traumas have gone on. But then you've respected yourself enough to say, well, I'm still going to love you anyway because you mean something to me. But, whenever you're ready to accept my love, that's fine. But even if you're not, I'm still going to love you. And that's something that does take courage. It does take resilience. And it is also, there's a part of you that you have grown because you're accepting that person regardless of whatever has happened between the two of you or between families and things. And you're just wishing them well. Yeah. And I think that is a hard thing to do, to let go of old grievances and, he said, she said, or the children don't talk to each other, the grandchildren don't talk to each other. Because unfortunately, these things can carry on through generations and they get lost in translation or transit, whatever, you want to say. But if I want to love everyone, then that means I've got to move away from the mistake that's been made or how I feel hurt by whatever somebody's done or said to me. And I've got to say, well, you know what? I understand wherever you're coming from, insecurity or whatever. And I have those feelings. I'm not saying I'm any different. I also have those feelings, but I'm choosing to love you anyway, regardless. And that is what unconditional love is. Yeah. We do it with our children, but we do find it harder to do with anyone outside of our own immediate family.
I mean, you can have it with your siblings as well.
Yeah, that's very close. What I mean. That's what I mean. Those are immediate relationships.
Yeah. So we often why they behaving like this very now? But why are they treating me like this? So this is where we inflict suffering on ourselves because thinking like we're going to the victim mentality, isn't it? Why? But then what we're actually focusing on at that time is thinking if they behave the way I want them to behave, so I feel better in myself, then ma khushi onna de naal. But if they're not treating me nicely, then I'm feeling the discomfort of it. So I'm wanting them to treat me nicely, then I'm khush. That's not what we call love. That's saying that it's conditioned, that you have to be nice to me all the time. You can't treat me like this. You can't be horrible to me and disrespect me because then I'll be happy. So this is where the learning comes from, that if I truly love and respect myself, if they don't respect me, but I respect myself, I honor myself, I'm in my integrity. When you're in that place of self-confidence, it doesn't matter how they treat you, right? you leave them as they are, and this is where the spiritual growth comes from, because they just maybe helping you to master this skill of self-love and self-compassion and unconditional love, that I'm not dependent on how you treat me. You can be the whatever you want. And when we fully allow ourselves to accept that and let them be, this is where we can actually love everyone. Dura we can send them love and respect. You know, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਦੇ ਘਰ ਖੁਸ਼ ਰਹੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਦੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ 'ਚ, ਆਪਦੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ 'ਚ ਖੁਸ਼ ਰਹੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਠੀਕ ਰਹੋ. But you actually allowed me to actually not go into that place of victim and feeling that my happiness, my peace of mind depends on how you treat me. This is now we've had an experience of connecting with Rab, God, that I can love everyone even if you don't treat me nicely.
And again, to understand and go to those depths that Dav's just mentioned, it is all about going inwards. It is about your own self-development. It is about giving yourself the time, the space to actually look within yourself and say, well, what can I do to help my own self-growth? Because where there's growth, that's going to have a positive impact, firstly on yourself, and of course it's going to have a positive impact on the people around you. But sometimes we think, oh well, like Dav said, that if I can fix that person, then my life's going to be fixed. But really, the fixing doesn't go with those people, it goes within ourselves. And that's where we're always confused, and we never understand or accept it's got nothing to do with them. It's all of it's to do with the way we behave, our actions, how we're projecting ourselves, because they're just telling you, look, if you don't treat yourself well and you're kind of treating yourself like a bit of a doormat, well, of course I'm going to walk all over you, because you've already told me that you're not that bothered about yourself. It's only when we upgrade ourselves and say, well, I'm not going to tolerate that, that's when the other person will think, actually, I need to be careful because this person won't allow this. But where you go back to, can you really love everyone? This is about accepting that they're on their journey. Whatever their journey is, that's their journey. But my journey is that I want to work out through my own self-development, through getting to know myself, my imperfections, my highs, my lows, what triggers me, so that I can love everyone and I can accept that people are the way they are because of their experiences of life. But at the same time, I have to understand that they're reflecting back to me about how I really feel about myself. And this is when your life will become like that, because we're learning. And it's also about being willing to learn, because you will always find people who will say, I don't care about that, I'm not interested in that. And that's all well and good. So that's why they will always feel hard done by, or that things are happening to them. They're always a victim. Nobody loves them, nobody cares, because they're not willing to actually look within themselves and say, well, actually, I have a responsibility here to do something about what is going on in my life, because it's always somebody else's fault. It's so much easier for everybody and anybody to blame the external factors and say, well, I lost my job and I can't find another one. Well, actually, you've lost your job, you can still find another one, but there's got to be some action, there's got to be some movement in that, because otherwise then you're just continuing to relive that story, and that becomes a pattern. But there's always a choice.
Yeah, so well, I'm going to mention these few words, and these are actual things that actually stops you loving everyone. One is when we start comparing, competition, when we start to blame, guilt, shame, being that victim mentality, feeling offended. All these are ways that we think that we can't love everyone. And while we're comparing, we're in this competition thing, we're thinking, there's some kind of race here that I've got to be better than the other, or we feel like, oh, how come they're not celebrating my achievement? Then we go into comparison, those sort of things. Like, I want them to be happy for me, and then I feel that jo bhi main kuch kita, then it's worth celebrating. So that's an expectation that we have. So all these are things that prevents us loving everyone. Because humans have a tendency to complain and always comparing so much, because we just feel that, I don't know, it's just this fear, isn't it, feeling left behind.
But I also feel that where we say things like that, that nobody's celebrating my wins, that's where we've got to change the story and say, well, it's fine. I'm proud of what I've done or
Yeah.
what I've achieved or what we've achieved. So let's just celebrate. It may just be that you celebrate with one friend, but that friend is the person that's just been with you on your journey, you know, and is there for you. So it doesn't really matter about everybody else.
I think
and
you
it's
want
just
that.
understanding and accepting that not everybody's going to be your cheerleader, and that's what we want, because to love everyone, we want them to be on our side. And,
I think
and
we
that's
just-
the hardest
yeah.
thing. And that goes back to being in the playground, where you want everyone to be your friend, but that just isn't possible.
That's just coming from a place of we're seeking validation, that you only seek validation, meri koi wawa kare, if you're not truly in love with yourself, you're not truly
Happy with who you are.
confident in yourself, that there's an element of you, or it could be a very strong part of you, where you're not worthy of thinking being loved or being celebrated for, deserving to have success. So if you got that program running in you, then you're seeking validation, and that's when you find it hard to love everyone, because sometimes that person will give you they will mirror back to you. If you're feeling not worthy of it, they're going to make you feel that you are, believe in that belief. They're going to sort of like solidify it and say you aren't worthy of being celebrated or being praised or being approved or whatever you're doing. So that's where we think, oh, I can't love that person, because no matter what I do, they don't want to participate or celebrate whatever I'm achieving, not realizing that they're just mirroring back, because you don't really believe in said, I'm not deserving being celebrated. So they're just mirroring that back. So that's why another thing that people find it hard to love everyone. So, you know, why would I want to love that person when it always, you know, joduma kushi that time, and that they run off, they don't say anything nice. In fact, they criticize and give me very harsh opinions. That's what, you know.
Yeah, and I totally get where you're coming from, but this is where we have got to be not only compassionate to them, but to ourselves. And I know that there's that element of their reflecting back how we really feel about ourselves. But if we celebrate our own successes, and for me, this is more about being grateful. You know, if I've done really well in something, or my children or my grandchildren or anybody have done well, then it's okay. We don't need to shout about it to the world. Just celebrate it quietly, because there are going to be people, because of where they are in their journey, on their journey, who aren't going to want to celebrate with you, because there is that comparison going on. So sometimes it is about just going with the flow and not making a big song and dance about it. But again, the people who are going to be happy for you, they're going to be happy for you because they're at the same vibration that you're at. This is why they say the higher you go in any aspect of your life, there's only going to be certain people that are going to go along that journey, because every single person who's gone along your journey, they've played their part. And they were never meant to go with you from the beginning to the end, because that then goes back to attachment.
Yeah.
You know, because we should never be attached. You know, even our own children, you know, they might say, well, Mom, Dad, you know, I don't really like what you're doing, but you carry on and we're just going to be doing what we're doing. Or it could just be that they're busy in their own lives and we're busy in ours, and that's completely fine. But you can still love everyone and accept what everyone's doing. And I mean, this again takes time, and it is about going within and saying, I love who I am, so therefore I don't need the love from anyone or anything else to make me feel whole, because I'm already a whole human being. God resides within me. God resides within that person, but they're just having a different experience to the experience that I'm having right now.
So we're just going to go a little bit more in depth about how can we really love everyone. And this comes into that deep inner knowing that everyone is us, them, me, we're all one. So once you really fully embody that connection, the truth of who you are, then there's no others. Others are me. So when we're celebrating somebody else's success, achievement, you're actually celebrating your own success, achievement. When you are berating and criticizing someone else, you actually are criticizing, berating yourself. And when you are hurting someone else, you're hurting yourself. But when you realize that there's no others, so remember we did a show in Nita Mojani a few months ago, And when she went, she had an end of life, she had an experience,
near-death
experience, yeah. And she went into the spirit world, and that's where she realized that there's no them and me, we're all one. All they soch, meri soch. All they experience, meri experience. There was no separation. When you go to that deeper inner knowing, that's when you know that if I'm loving me, that means I'm automatically loving everybody else. Then everybody else is me. Every person out there on this planet is me. You know, so that inner knowing, and that's when you know the word omnipresent is everywhere. And I'm an extension of God. Then so is everybody. So then if there's only one ik, why do we say do then? No, why do we use the word ik on? There's only ik, there's only oneness. That's when you know you can really, you can't really, it's just happening. You are everyone, you got no choice. You are loving everyone. It's simple as that, period.
But the thing is, we all have to understand and accept this, that when we're living in the external world, we are just playing our roles. They're playing their roles. And then we just kind of get locked into, well, he said this, she said this, she did that. But again, it's when you're going on to a much, much deeper level, how beautifully Dav's just explained it, we're just one. But, that takes time for all of us to kind of get to that level and depth of understanding. It takes time, and it is all about spending that time with yourself, doing what you need to do that's making you feel whole, and not feel that you're not good enough, or there's, you feel jealous or envious. And these are all normal emotions. In order to understand the pure essence of love, you have to experience those negative, lower frequencies of when you're not feeling great, because how would you actually understand the bliss and the amazing feeling of the one without having those experiences yourself?
And we always say that, that and all of a sudden the phone rings, or they come up to your house.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really good
and we
thing.
do it all the time.
Yeah.
This she'll finish it off what I'm thinking about. It happens all the time. This is what we call
synchronicities.
Yeah, or we're being quite telepathic or something. But that just shows you that there's no separation, that once we're really in that same vibe and the same vibration, that we sort of like can pick on each other's thoughts, then that means, well, there's no difference between us. You know my thoughts, I know your thoughts. That's just examples. We get that bit of, insight of how interconnected we are, all of us.
And I think also, especially if you've got family that live far away or abroad, and there's some kind of something within you says, oh, you know what, I need to call that person, and whether it's your child or something, and then you realize it was so important, and they were thinking about you, they needed you, they wanted you. So without realizing it, you're doing it. So there's got to be, and we totally understand and accept that there is so much more going on within this world, for us to understand that, yes, there is so much connection than there is disconnection, if that's even a word.
I don't know, well, it's our word now. The love word.
Yes, it's the disconnection. I'm sure, disconnection is definitely a word. So again, if we go back to, can you really love everyone? Again, what we're saying is it's a journey. It's not something that happens, and we will always experience these highs and these lows, and understanding, how to love everyone. How do you do that? And it's looking beyond the person and understanding that
personality and character. We can tell, what kind of relationship they have with themselves. And then we always know that somebody in our family or people that we know, isn't it? That how come? And of course, dunya che bura ho raha, but yet they always talk about all the wonderful things, all the good news, all the celebrations, people are having, and then you can tell that's how they feel about themselves.
Yeah, because if you just look at it from a very, very basic level, if I speak to you or anyone in a really happy, positive way, and you return, the conversation in a really low, like, oh, I don't know what she's going on about, or this, that, and the other, then I'll straight away know what you're thinking, where you are, what kind of frequency you're on, whether it's a very low, because you don't feel good about yourself. So therefore I'm going to think, well, I wonder what's going on. If I'm compassionate, kind, caring, but if I'm just not that bothered, then I'll be like, oh, you know what? You're just bringing me down, so I don't want to be around you. It's all about how you feel at that specific time. But if I'm going to be trying embody this, which is what you've just said, can you really love everyone? Then me being me, I would want to know what's really going on for you. Why are you not being kind or saying these things to yourself? Or I'll want to dig deeper, not because I'm a nosy person, although there's an element of that in there somewhere. I'm going to want to know because I care. So anybody that I will come across, I know genuinely would want to help in whichever way I can.
Sadly,
because by
people,
helping them, I'm helping myself.
Yeah, most of the time they don't realize they're doing it. It's such a habit, people got a habit of complaining, whinging, criticizing. And it's something that they've learned to do, and they're doing it unconsciously. So, and they think, for them, the lens they wear, they just see the world is always something going wrong. They got a reason to complain and criticize, because they think sometimes criticize is a good thing. Maybe somebody out there need to know my opinion, because it might do. They don't realize sometimes it can be very disheartening and disempowering for someone. But then, like you're watching a movie, this is program dekhte hain, and it could be a comedy show, and one person say, "Bahut hi funny siga," and the other thing, total bakwas, So it's coming from what they're projecting out because of the relationship they have with themselves. Someone doesn't see the world to be a funny place. It's something you've got to be serious, and you've got to be disciplined, so you've got to be formal and all that sort of thing. So they see a funny movie really pathetic. Yet the person is coming from a relationship they have themselves, where they see life is about having fun. It's okay to see the silliness. I feel connected with my inner child. I love that relationship. So they will have a completely different, understanding of that movie.
And I think it will always come back to choice. What kind of experience do you want to have? Yes, life is always going to throw challenges. We're always going to have, really, really upsetting things happen, loss of, a loved one, things like that. That is just normal. And it's all about how do we overcome those challenges? How do we grow from it? What do we do in order to fulfill the need of wanting that person to still be here? Is it from a selfish perspective? Is it, is it because I don't feel complete without having that person as part of my life? Of course, there's always going to be the good side of, well, I love that person, I cared about them, and they're a really important part of my life. But now all of a sudden you're going to be on your own. And I know in Gurbani, and so many Shabad, that it always talks about we come into the world on our own and we're going to leave on our own. We are one person, but we don't want to accept that. We have these different kinds of attachments, but essentially, it could all be gone tomorrow. And so what do we do? So this is why the relationship that you have with yourself is so important. And through loving who you are, because unfortunately we do have this thing now, especially through social media, of wanting to be perfect in every aspect of not only the way we look, but the way we feel, how we speak, our clothes and all of the materialistic things, how important it is, how difficult it is to actually just love somebody for not wearing or being the way we are, because we want to be around people that reflect who we are. So the real challenge is, can you just love the beggar that's on the street who's always asking for money? Can you still love that person the same as you would love your own child? That's the experience that they're having right now in their life.
And we often say this as well, that hurt people, don't they?
I thought I made that up.
Did you?
I genuinely did.
Really? No, but we have.
But I believe it. I think it's it's a great quote.
The reason people are hurting themselves, they hurt other people, because that's the relationship they have with themselves.
It's the state, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're in.
So that's normal for them. But the ones who love themselves, they can only love someone. So that's how you can love someone. So how can you love everyone? You have to love yourself. You have to love all your imperfections, all your flaws. And, Jita Rab can love. Rab is the omnipresent, unconditional love state. So it won't judge from Hitler, Mother Teresa, or anyone, because Rab is full of love. It's got nothing else to give. And the little analogy, like if you got an orange, and if you squeeze the orange, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੀ ਨਿਕਲਣਾ?
Not apple juice.
No. So, orange juice,
oh sorry.
orange is nikalna. So, what I'm trying to say is like, if you squeeze, and when you squeeze it, that's the pressure, that's what's, it doesn't matter what's happening in your life, you're being pressure and squeeze. But favorite which orange juice hi likhna. So let's say the orange juice is love. No matter how much dunya ch conflict, taklif hoye, whatever, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਫਿਰ ਪਿਆਰ ਹੀ ਲਿਖਣਾ if it's an orange of love, so it's a ਪਿਆਰ ਹੀ ਲਿਖਣਾ. But if the orange is full of resentment and anger, no matter how much you're getting pressured and triggered, ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਲਿਖਣਾ. So whatever is inside us, ਉਹੀ ਲਿਖਣਾ. So if you want to love everyone, so you have to love yourself, ਉਹੀ ਲਿਖਣਾ.
Yeah, and again, we have to keep going back to the point that this is all about you. All the programs that we, talk about, it's all about going back to you. It's our relationship that we have with ourselves, and for some reason, naturally, going back, it's our environment. We'll blame our parents, we'll blame so many different things, but really it's about, well, why is it that I feel this way? And the moment we start doing that, we're actually taking responsibility, and we're looking at what we can do in order to change what's going on the outside. And until that happens, life doesn't change. And I always say then, what do you want to experience? I will say to my children who are grown adults now, what do you want? For me, life is all about excitement, doing things which are fun. As long as I've got my health, there might be a time, well, I may not be able to do things, but while I've got my health, I've got a bit of money, I can do things that I really want to do.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm not willing to just use the television and, just to live in my house. And that's it. That's my experience of life. So your experience of life is exactly what you want it to be. If it's about expensive X, Y, and Z, if that's what brings you happiness, brilliant, great. But there comes a point in all of our lives where material things just don't do it. And like I always think that we're on this earth to go back to God and to experience God. And when we experience God, that's when, through whatever we're feeling, then you can just go ahead and do whatever you want to do. You don't have to think about other people. It's all about what makes you happy.
I think when you say go back to God, I think remember I am God, and that happened to you the other day. Remember something was happening and then you had that message.
Yeah.
And then it said there's nothing to worry about. That,
yeah.
It was something to do. You are God.
I
so
know.
Why is it
and
to
this
worry
is the
about?
thing. Yeah.
So there's always something trying to make us go into that self-realization that you're not separate from God. You are God. So if you are God, you are everything. So these sort of moments when we have moments of despair or worry or concern, it just is, this is a mind what's putting meaning onto that situation. But God yourself wants to experience that situation. It's just an experience. And the experience, we just find ourselves suffering with it when it's just an experience that's just not going to matter in 10 years or 20 years.
Yeah, and when we say experience, they're just thoughts. They're not real, you know, and this is what the problem is, that when we start thinking something and overthinking, we become the thought. And that's not reality. Reality is what is happening right now.
Thought just comes and goes like a passing cloud, and then we get out of, disconnect from our state. And like I said earlier on as well, that, the problem, it happened, but that's gone. And what's causing the suffering now, that we're constantly ruminating and playing it out over and over again. And for our mind to think that our body reacts thinking it's actually happening. So we start stimulating the same, stress hormones and everything. And body thinks that, oh, this is normal for you to be under this conflict and this pressure and this stress. But it's not then it's not the people out there that's causing you the pain or suffering. It's just our own thoughts becomes our worst enemy.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
That stops us from loving everyone. Not what they did to us, it's the thoughts we keep ruminating on. That becomes into a place where we separate ourselves from the love for everyone.
So quickly, because we've gone into this and, we love talking about what we love talking about, which is, how to love everyone. But we're just going to finish off with a couple of love songs. And which one was yours?
Actually, I love The Prani Gani, yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
always
yeah.
been
We
my
do
thing.
both.
The
I love them
50s,
too.
60s, 70s song. And they had a lot of meaning in them. But I always find out that these songs always, the most popular songs was always about loss
most
of
depressing.
love. Depressing. The
No,
wording
sometimes.
the wording is always about, you know, like, and this is not an old one. I know that one from Hiranja, the movie.
Yeah. Do dil.
Let's
just sing it.
Hiranja.
Do dil toote, do dil haare.
And it's such a beautiful song, but it talks about separation and loss. I mean, I'll change that to, come on. So do dil jure, do dil jeete. So, but can you see how this popular songs, it always talks about loss and pain and suffering. So humans are sort of like thinking in love that we experience this loss and heartbreak, but then in the heartbreak, the heart does open, and that's where we do experience more deep depth of love. So really, nothing's not a mistake, really.
So I'm going to finish off with saying a quick little quote, shairi that we both love. Do pal bade aukhe guzre. Do pal bade aukhe guzre. Ek tere aane se pehle, ta ek tere jaane ke baad.
Yes. It's a beautiful one, that is.
And this is the one that you said that you at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I know. I said, जिसके दिल में इश्क मोहब्बत है, जिसके दिल में इश्क मोहब्बत है, उसको पसंद करता है मौला. So Rab saying that once we have ishq and mohabbat inside us, we feel that with everyone. फिर सारे which मौला we experience. This is a beautiful episode we had, and we will continue next on our next episode on love. Thank you.
Thank you.